Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's garden video. I'm not going to do like I've done in the past couple videos and necessarily go day by day and show you what's going on, but I will sequentially go through what happened during the week. And I started off the week by taking a look at the garden and realizing that my cucumbers are becoming ready, which I get pretty excited about. It's so funny how leading up to any crop becoming ready, you get very excited about it, and then they start coming in and you realize, oh gosh, I've really got to keep up with what's going on. So cucumbers looked like they were just about ready to go at the beginning of the week. And then I also have zucchini, and I, planted 4 plants because my history has been that sometimes they don't produce. I don't understand it. Sometimes they produce well, sometimes they don't. Well, I have 4 producing plants. So I have zucchini out the ears right now. And this is just one morning I'm out there looking at them, and I think you'll see here in a second, I think I got 6 or 7 or 8, and they're all decent sizes. But this is a look at what I got for that day. I got some peas, I got some cucumber, and I got some beans and some zucchini as well. I also decided that it was time for me to harvest my basil. In previous videos, I had seen that it had started to go to seed, and I'm okay harvesting after it's gone to seed. I had plucked the seed heads off, trying to buy myself a little more time for it going to seed. But I decided to go ahead and cut my basil pretty much back down to the ground. It'll probably resprout. If not, I have some more started. And I pretty much 100% of the basil that I grow goes towards pesto. So after I harvested it, I went to the bench here you see me in the patio set, and I just pulled off all the leaves. And I've mentioned this in previous videos, but harvesting and processing is actually most of the time when you're running a garden. So for me, pulling all the leaves off of all the basil, running inside and making pesto, and here's just kind of how I make pesto. I use garlic, and then I use walnuts from the tree here at the yard, which is nice. Some salt, and then the basil goes in as well with some olive oil, lemon juice. And I also, because we don't eat cheese here, we more or less eat vegan at home, more or less, not exactly. But we use nutritional yeast instead of cheese in ours. And I use walnuts because they're a lot less expensive than pine nuts. But I ended up with a ton of pesto, enough for the whole year. I also, when wandering around the garden, as I just kind of look at everything and check its status, noticed that some of my tomatoes have actually already turned red. I think I've pulled 2 off at this point in time, but here was a little cluster that was getting ready to go, which makes me really excited because, like I said, every time leading into a particular crop coming available, you get pretty excited. In my last video, I talked about how my peas, they naturally tell you when they're done. And my peas had kind of started turning yellow. They started dying back. So I did spend some time finally, after I think 3 weeks of saying I was going to do this, pulling out most of the peas. Some of them that were, a little green at the bottom, I actually left in the ground, and we'll see if I get any more peas from them, but I think they're pretty much done for the season. And then you've seen me a million times out here harvesting raspberries, but here's the raspberries. And I got some really big ones. On the right-hand side there, you see some much bigger raspberries than the ones I typically get on the left, so I was excited about that. And I regularly show my grapes, which are here on the ground, and the reason I show them is because I actually have grown them from scions, which are basically just little twigs with nothing on them, and they're a couple years old and they're in the ground. And I'm really excited to get, a big harvest of nice edible grapes. This is the grapevine that's already on the property, which is, I'm going to call it a Concord grape, and it produces grapes every year, as you can see here. But when I'm talking about my grapes and I get excited about my grapes, it's definitely the new grapes that I'm growing, which are a sweeter, seedless edible variety. So I can't wait for them to produce fruit. Almost every day, we're in that season where things are just producing. So I'm out there. This is me harvesting some beans. I have multiple bean plants. I have both bush beans and pole beans. And right now my bush beans are really producing well. I've even pickled some earlier. But I'm out there, and I've mentioned this, and you guys have seen this in previous videos, but I always have an audience. And here Finn, our pig, is sitting there grunting and wanting attention and wanting some sort of, food from the garden and leftovers from the garden. So I find that to be funny. I also noticed that my Marion berry has produced a berry, which was ripe, and I ate it, and it was incredibly tart. So maybe not fully ready yet. The next day I was out, and I actually started to realize, I have so many cucumber that are ready to go, and you can actually leave them on the vine, and let them just get bigger and bigger, but I decided to harvest quite a few. And this week was a huge harvest of cucumber. I think I pulled off 15 cucumber, and this is a Korean variety, which is like an English variety with a very thin skin, really nice. I'll end up eating quite a few of them in salads, but I'll also end up pickling quite a few of them because I really enjoy pickles. I also noticed that Canadian geese are already flying overhead, which is a sign that we're turning the corner into fall. And this is something I was talking to my mom on the phone about this, and I realized when I was looking at my corn that the varieties are so obvious, and I just eeny, meeny, miny, mo pick them. But I've got this yellow variety, this purple variety, and on the far end I've got almost like a brown variety. The corn itself is going to come off as yellow, but I just thought it was interesting how different the different flowers look for each variety. Every day when I'm out in the garden, I don't always record this, but this is something I do. I just do little maintenance things, whether it's weeding or things along those lines. And this is a tomatillo that I'm growing, and I'm actually growing it in a tomato container, whatever those things are called. I saw that some of the tomatillo was growing outside of it, so I wanted to give it more support, so I put it in there. And those are little things that I do every day. I also noticed that I've got a little baby asparagus coming up, which I didn't think they came up this time of year, but I've got another little asparagus crown coming up. I will just leave that in the ground and let that, get energy for the next couple years when I'll start harvesting. I know you guys saw me harvest beans earlier. This is me harvesting beans again, but I've got bush beans kind of in different areas, and sometimes I snack on them when I'm eating them as well. But this is me going out there, and again, this time of year, you just sort of have to go out there daily or every other day, or the beans. And for those of you who go green beans, they're great at a certain size, but once they pass a certain size, they get kind of mealy and gross, and that can happen within a day. So got to get out there daily and do it. And also, I planted some morning glory, not the bindweed that everyone hates, and it's really pretty. I also, even though for as much as I'm ready for these beets to be done, when I was walking by them one morning, I noticed that they are just a flurry of activity of pollinators. So if there's one thing that is not annoying about these plants, is that they've got a ton of pollinators into the garden. I also took a look at my seedlings I started, I think it was last week, and they're already germinating and they're doing really well, and I have them sitting outside just kind of growing up before I plant them out. And seeing that my onions are ready to go, I harvested a bunch of them this week, and I'll just leave them in the ground until I need them, but I pulled 5 or 6 out because I use quite a bit of onions. And then I thought, what am I going to do with these tops? And I decided to dehydrate them. So I went ahead and dehydrated them and left them in there for I don't know how many hours, and then ground them up, and I made myself an onion powder. When I was out there by the onions, I was looking, and those seed heads are forming. You can see how there's little nodules at the top versus the sort of the flower state that these ones are in where they look a bit fuzzy. So I'm very optimistic. I'm going to get a bunch of seeds, and I'm excited to see how they work. I didn't film this, but I did go out and I picked a bunch of blackberries. They're already ripe this time of year, which I get really excited about. I did make pies out of them. I'm not a great pie maker, but I made them, and we will enjoy them later this week. Oh, here's what I was talking about, those cucumbers. This is the next day I'm out there and just kind of going through, and I could have picked probably 10 more. So this is the harvest for the day with the onions, the zucchini, and the cucumber, and a lot going on. Now, those of you who have been watching these videos for, I don't know, a little while now, know that this year I'm really struggling getting my beets to grow because I plant them and something is eating them down. I put out beer traps for slugs, didn't catch any slugs. I don't know what's going on. I planted a bunch of starts out right before I went on vacation. They all got eaten down. I direct sowed a bunch, which I lost all the footage of, but I direct sowed a bunch. They all came up. The next day they all got eaten down. So I thought I'm going to try something else. And basically what I did is I planted out 3 of the beets that have recently germinated, and I just took a toilet paper roll that I cut in half and I put a little collar around it, stuck it in the ground. The third one I planted and put a cloche on top of, just an empty jar. And I'm gonna see if just by putting these little collars around them, whatever is eating them is not eating them, because I'm really annoyed if that's what's gonna happen. And here's what they look like. They're kind of tucked in and just protected. And I ended up, because I had just dug through them, realized that they needed to be separated out. So I did spend some time dividing them out, which a lot of people say don't do because they do put down a taproot. But for now, until I can get them in the ground, I want them to have their own growing space. But the next day, I went out and took a look, and it worked. This collar thing, this and cloche thing worked. They weren't eaten down, so I'm going to give it a couple days, but I might keep doing that to get the rest in the ground. And really, we're to today and what the garden looks like today. So instead of narrating each particular row and every single thing that's going on in the garden, I'll just leave you with an overview as I walk through the garden, and you can see how it's doing this week.